You guys are going to hear it. The latest from the locker room, the latest from the podium, the latest scuttle from the players.
On your proud home of 49ers football.
Touchdown!
KNBR, the sports leader. Your faithful fix with your host, Larry Krueger, begins.
We'll take phone calls. We'll talk Niners for a full hour. Fired up. Really excited.
Now.
And away we go after a lengthy Thursday night game. Bengals 33, Steelers 31. Now we all see why Mike Tomlin did not like Joe Flacco being traded from the Browns to the Bengals. Because tonight, Joe Flacco rose up and played like the Joe Flacco that I saw beat the 49ers in the Superdome in Super Bowl 47. Joe Flacco had a night. 31 of 47, 342 yards, 3 touchdowns, and the Bengals win at home on a whiteout. No Trey Hendrickson, and it didn't matter. Chase Brown ran for 108 yards, 9.8 a carry. Cincinnati ran as a team for 6 yards a carry, 6.2 a carry. How about Jamar Chase? 23 targets, 16 catches, 161 yards and a touchdown. If you had Jamar Chase on your fantasy team this week, you probably won. Even though it's Thursday and who knows. But that's a nice little way to start. 16 for 161 and the 1 touchdown for Jamar Chase. So on a night when the Bengals didn't have Trey Hendrickson and fell into a 10-0 hole, they came back and beat the Steelers 33-31. And what was really amazing is if you watch this game, the Rodgers to Freiermuth 68-yarder was a backbreaker. It should have ended the game. Rodgers hits Freiermuth on a 68-yard scoring play to make it 31-30. But the Bengals had some time, and Flacco led an 8-play, 52-yard drive in 2 minutes and 14 seconds. Evan McPherson, who's a terrific young kicker, 36-yard field goal, and the Bengals get out of there with a win. I'm kind of happy. I didn't care either way in this game, but I'm kind of happy for the Bengals and their fans. I mean, they had a look on their face like, we've been beaten down by this team continuously through the years, and we're going to lose this game. They had that look on their face collectively. There's just no confidence when you're the Cincinnati Bengals. Anyway, the Steelers lose, the Bengals win, and I guess all is right with the world for a night. We're here to talk a little Niner football. Chase Sr., who's the star of Chat Sports Niner coverage on YouTube, is going to join us in a bit. We'll get his thoughts. A lot of stories in Ninerland. John Lynch started the day off Niner-wise with Murph and Marcus on the KNBR Morning Show. Make sure you catch Lynch every Thursday morning. He's in that Thursday morning, I believe, 8 a.m. time slot, and they sometimes replay it as well. But he stopped by with Murph and Marcus today, and they had a bunch of questions for him. They asked him about Shanahan and Jennings and their little dust up on the sideline, and John's, hey, it was. We don't love to see it, but at the same time, we love the competitiveness of JJ, and they've talked, they've moved beyond it. Everything's going to be hunky-dory. So there's no issue there. He did talk about Brandon Ayuk's status, just saying that he's getting closer, but there is no official timeline for Ayuk. And I would say, what I said all summer was Thanksgiving, and I'll stay with it. It's October 16th today. Thanksgiving is last week of November? I think that's about right. I think there's a chance he doesn't play at all this year. But if you do see him, I think it's going to be right about late November. I mean, if it was early December, it wouldn't surprise me either. He tore 3 major parts of that knee. It was week 7 when he went out. So week 7 was anybody saying he was coming back before week 7. I mean, that was just pure folly. I mean, what are we talking about? An ACL takes a full year. He had an ACL, an MCL, and a meniscus and some other damage in there. So you knew it was going to be a while. So he's going to be out. He was asked if Fred Warner could possibly be back for the playoffs. And John, I don't know. I think John didn't want to answer that one because it's like, hey, we love Fred. We're wishing him our best. We're praying for him and we wish him success. But they don't want to put any expectations that he's going to come back this year. And nor should they. But, Matt Barrows did talk to some orthopedic surgeons who said that if, it's a regular no setbacks timeline, that maybe if the Niners made the Super Bowl, Fred could be back. As I said, I wouldn't bank on that. Lynch was asked about Fred Warner's injury and how it impacts the Niners' decisions as the November 4th NFL trade deadline is fast approaching. And he just said, "Hey, look, we're going to do our due diligence and see what's out there." And um, I get the feeling after watching the Bengals tonight. I mean, they didn't have Trey Hendrickson, but they they don't want to sell. They don't want to trade him. I don't think they're going to. I think the better fit for the Niners might be the Jets duo of Will McDonald the fourth and Jermaine Johnson. I was looking at some of those numbers today as far as the percentages, the win percentage as edge rushers. Like Trey Hendrickson's awesome, right? He wins 22.6% of the time. Jalen Phillips of the Dolphins, really good, 19% win percentage off the edge. Bradley Chubb, though, 11.1. Rashawn Gary, 12.6. Arden Key, 8.2. But a couple guys who have real high numbers are Jermaine Johnson and Will McDonald the fourth. They both play for the Jets. They were both drafted by Robert Saleh. And I think that makes a lot of sense if you could get those guys in a deal. Jermaine Johnson's only played a few games, but 72 pass rush snaps. He already has 9 pressures and a 13.6 win percentage. So I like him against the run, and he's a decent edge rusher. And then you got Will McDonald in 121 pass rush snaps this year for the Jets. He's got 13 pressures, 2 sacks, and a 13.3% win percentage. So that's a good percentage. If you could add Jermaine Johnson and Will McDonald the fourth, 2 young guys who are, know Robert Saleh, know the system, and are ready to contribute, that might be what I mean. Bosa's that great that if you're going to replace Bosa, it may take 2 guys. And then my thing with Hendrickson is not what it would cost in a trade as much as what it would cost on a contract. Can you really have 2 $30+ million edge rushers on one team? That's the question, really. It's not about can they trade for him or this or that. It's more about or extend him. It's about can you afford to extend him at that price tag? He's got kind of an elite player price tag. Not surprisingly, because he is an elite player. But what do you want to see the Niners do at the trade deadline? That's a big debate here as we get a little closer to November the 4th. Lynch was asked about the quarterback situation, and he said, "Hey, look, Mac's doing great for us. Brock's our guy. When Brock's ready to roll, he's going to be back in there." And I get the feeling that Brock will not. Shanahan basically said with Adam and Derek that Mac Jones is going to start. Mac Jones is the healthier of the two. They were both limited in practice, but Jones was less limited, according to Shanahan. I'll say this: Purdy, I think, and this is my own thought. Okay, this is not nobody's messaging through me. I'm not delivering anybody's message. I was at practice today, and I just think that he's lost some zip on the ball because of the toe. I don't think he has the same arm strength. He was throwing loopy passes to the sideline to Kendrick Bourne. Kendrick Bourne was literally catching it. It literally was like falling down as it got to the sideline. So I don't think Brock's got the same zip on the ball, and I think it's because of the toe. He's not throwing the ball with the same kind of zip. He's not throwing it on a line. And then when he goes to run, he looks pained. So I don't know. I don't know what the plan is there. I know he's going to try to make it back next week, probably because he told the Niners, "Don't put me on IR." That would have been a 4-week break. Next week would be 3 weeks. So if you say "Don't put me on IR," it means that you probably think you could come back before the 4 weeks, and that would be next week against Houston. But I don't think that's the wise thing. I think they ought to shut it down with him and get him healthy. I mean, I do not mess around with this kid's career long term. I don't know how bad the toe could get, but I don't want to find out. And I hope they do what's in his best interest, and I hope he doesn't try to force it and understands what's in his best long-term interest as well. Lynch was asked about Ricky Pearsall, and he said, they're not surprised. It's not like the knee situation with Ricky is not taking a turn for the worse or anything. It's just, when you play the perimeter, whether you're on offense or defense in the NFL, you got to play at a very, very high level. And if you can't have ultimate movement ability, you probably can't play. And then some guys can handle pain better than others. But Ricky with the knee is still working his way back, but he's not back. He won't be playing Sunday night. And that means that it's hopefully time for Kendrick Bourne to have a third straight 100-yard day. By the way, if Kendrick Bourne goes for 100 on Sunday night, he will do something that hasn't been done by a Niner since Jerry Rice in the mid-90s. 1995 Jerry was the last time one Niner receiver has had 3 consecutive 100-yard games. And that's what Bourne's on the verge of if he can go for over 100 against the Falcons on Sunday Night Football. That's incredible. They've had T.O., they've had other guys. They've had Anquan Bolden. Nobody has gone for 100 3 straight games. 100. We're not talking about 150, 100 yards, 3 straight games. Nobody's done it since Jerry Rice, 1995. Lynch also said today that Tatum Bethune, he's going to be the number 1 Mike linebacker. He's going to wear the green dot. I was talking to Luke Gifford in the locker room today. Luke says that he thinks Tatum's going to do just fine. Said, he's not. I said he's not Fred Warner, and he's like, he doesn't need to be. He's got a whole team around him, and he just needs to do his job, play his position, and that'll be enough. We're also Lynch mentioned we're probably going to get a good chance to see Nick Martin, who John described as in the lab. He's been in the lab getting ready. And for those who have taken to social media to rip Nick Martin because he wasn't active the first couple of weeks. He's a bust. Get ready to delete tweet. I think is the term that you'll be using shortly. Delete tweet, because Nick Martin is really, really good. And once he gets out there, I think people are going to see that. Ricky Pearsall did not practice today. Dom Pooney was back at practice. Trent Williams was back at practice. Brock Purdy practiced, but he was taking third team reps. So it was like Mac was taking the ones, Martinez was going second. Purdy looked like he was going third in most of the drills that I saw. Marquez Valdez-Scantling also has an injury. I think he's got a calf out of nowhere. Gross Matos had the hamstring. He did not practice today. Mac Jones did practice. He looked like he was having a good time running around out there. I think this is the week that we see Jordan Watkins. The Niners probably should get Jordan Watkins and Isaac Guerendo on the field. Watkins has got a ton of speed. So does Guerendo. They need that big play ability. I'd really like to see Watkins out there. I think you are going to see him in place of Sky Moore, but also I'd love to see Watkins and Guerendo just on the field from scrimmage. I think their size, speed, and tackle breaking ability, I think, especially Watkins, I think he's a game breaker. I'd like to see them get their speed on the field. All right, we're going to talk more about these Niner topics and many more coming up next. Chase Sr. is going to stop by, chat sports. We'll get his thoughts on some of these topics and more. Niners and Falcons go Sunday night. If you want to chime in, 808 KNBR, the phone number. But up next, Chase Sr. stops by on Niners Nightly on the Sports Leader.
Now, back to Niners Nightly with your host, Larry Krueger, on KNBR, the sports leader. Sports leader.
All right, welcome back to Niners Nightly, and the star of Chat Sports 49er coverage joins us tonight on the leader. That's right, Chase Sr. is back with us, back by popular demand. The Niners, just a busy day of activity, lots of things to talk about, and Chase is on top of all of it for Chat Sports. Check him out on YouTube. The YouTube star dabbling in radio tonight. What's up, Chase? How are you?
If you call me the star of Chat Sports, I'm going to call you Larry the Legend.
How are you, man?
I'm doing
good?
awesome. Yeah, doing great. Obviously, a lot of storylines starting to pick up with everything that's going on with this football team. Injuries, potential trade rumors, roster moves. And then with this team, you really can never sleep because when it seems as though everything is going in a good direction, there could be an injury here. When they do something good, something negative might happen. So the Niners certainly keep us on our toes, that's for sure.
No doubt. And Chat Sports is all over. Tell people about Chat Sports and what you're doing over there. And if they're hearing you for the first time on the leader, tell them where they can find you.
Yeah, so if you just search 49ers Report on YouTube, we have a channel that has 177,000 subscribers, and so I'm the host of that show. And I like to say I'm a host, analyst, content creator, but my broadcasting career has gone a bunch of different directions where I've been on television as a news reporter, I've done radio, podcasting, and now I'm in the digital media sphere. And I really enjoy this because this platform allows me to share my football opinions, my insight, my analysis, but I really like the fan interaction model. I try to be the voice of all Niner fans out there. And so we've reached about 4 million people over the last month, and this is a massive platform. I dreamed of covering the NFL as I grew up. So to be able to have this platform, it's a blessing. I wake up every single day really excited to talk about the Niners, and it's truly a blast. I'm honored.
Yeah, let's get to it. I was at practice today, and Brock Purdy was there practicing, which was encouraging, but he was taking third-team reps behind Adrian Martinez, and Mac Jones was taking the first-team reps. Purdy, of course, still has the toe. He's officially listed as a limited participant today at practice. And then Mac Jones, according to Kyle Shanahan in the latest conversation that he had on KNBR during his weekly show, he says Mac Jones will most likely be the starting quarterback Sunday night against the Atlanta Falcons. And, I don't know if that was big news or not. My thing is I think the Niners ought to give Purdy an extended rest to let that toe heal. And I don't think they're going to, because I think that's why he said, hey, you know what? I don't want to go on IR. IR would have been a 4-week deal. So I think he's back next week, and I think they ought to give it, multiple weeks before they let him return because of what happened last time. How do you think the Niners ought to play their hand at quarterback?
Well, this brings me back to the conversation that we had a few weeks ago going into that Jaguars game where you and I were on the Krug show, and we were talking about how the Niners should manage this Brock Purdy injury. And you and I discussed how we thought it was a little bit too early for Purdy to come off of that injury and to play already, because it was reported originally as a 2 to 5 week injury. And so he missed that Saints game. He missed that Cardinals game. And that was obviously within that 2 to 5 week timeline. But you had a great observation from when you were at practice in the lead up to that Jags game. And at that point, when we were talking, the Niners hadn't made a decision as to who was going to start at quarterback. And you said, I don't think Brock Purdy is right. I think they should continue to go with Mac Jones, because when you were at practice, you made the observation of he couldn't really plant his foot and drive his lower half. And because of that, he was sailing a lot of throws, leaving a lot of balls high. And then he ends up playing against Jacksonville. What did he do in that game, Larry? Exactly what you saw in practice. A lot of overthrows, which led to a couple of interceptions. And in that game, the Niners turned it over 4 times. You can't win that way. And even some of the balls that he overthrew that didn't get picked, there were opportunities for giveaways, and they were drive killers or momentum changers. And obviously, Purdy wasn't helped by the fact that the Niners also had 6 drops in that game, and they gave up an 87-yard punt return for a touchdown. But the clear takeaway from that game, he did not look right. And I thought that he was moving around in that game very gingerly. And you could tell that he was hesitant to run the football and to create plays out of structure. And he kind of just hung out inside the pocket because he didn't have confidence in that toe. And the turf toe has a high risk of re-aggravation. Well, what happened against Jacksonville? He came back too early, re-aggravated it, and then he's been on the shelf since. And so I thought that this week, some of the videos of him throwing, he definitely looked better where his base was more firm. And I think it's smart to let Mac Jones play against Atlanta. If the Niners can just pass protect, and the offensive line has been a problem that you and I have been talking about for years, Mac has shown that he can really be an elite thrower from inside the pocket. The Niners certainly miss Brock Purdy's ability to create out of structure and to run the ball and to be athletic back there because so often he's bailed out that bad offensive line. And so hopefully the Niners can pass protect against an Atlanta pass rush that's much improved from years prior. But I think it's smart to not play Purdy this week. And hopefully next week, with another week of rest and recovery, he'll be good to go and he won't re-aggravate that toe. Otherwise, if he does, that's just a death sentence for his 2025 season.
You know, I watched him today at practice, and he just, there's a little bit of a loopiness to the ball right now. He's not zipping it out there. I don't know if it's because he can't push off with the toe or what, but his ball just it just it's not his normal zip on the passes. His ball's got a little bit of a loop to it, and it's just not what I'm used to seeing. So we'll see. I don't think he's right yet, and I hope they don't rush him back. I'd like to see them let it heal. Whoever plays quarterback this week, and it looks like it's going to be Mac Jones, better get ready because this is going to be a challenge. I was looking at some of the numbers, Chase. Atlanta plays highest percentage of cover one in the NFL. They're playing man-to-man most of the time, and they also bring pressure at the highest rate. They blitz at the highest rate in the NFL. They really bring it on third downs. I asked Kubiak about it today, and he said they do mix in some shells as well, some zones. So they really don't give you the same look consistently. But it's going to be a challenge because they do send a lot of pressure and they do play man-to-man. So if the Niners receivers can't win these one-on-one man-to-man matchups, it could be a rough night for Mac Jones.
Well, it was rough for him last week because Tampa Bay was all over him. They had 22 total pressures, 11 hurries of Mac. He got sacked 6 times, and the Buccaneers had a pressure rate of 11.3%. The thing, too, this could be more of a frenetic game just because of all of the weapons that the Falcons have on offense, how they've been performing on offense over the last couple of weeks as Zach Robinson, their OC, has gone from the booth down to the field, just like Steve Wilkes a couple of years ago. And you think about what the Falcons do offensively. Michael Penix can really spin it. Bijan Robinson might be the best offensive skill player in the NFL right now. Drake London has great size. They have a couple of other good weapons. Tyler Algier is a really good backup running back. Kyle Pitts is a phenomenal player who is finally seemingly starting to find a groove in his NFL career because he's been slow to start. I thought he was a generational prospect coming out of Florida. It's just been a little bit slow for him, but they can really move the ball. And obviously the Niners are so banged up on defense without Nick Bosa and Fred Warner, and the Falcons can run it. The Niners run defense has been leaky. They can throw it. And so this might be that game where the Niners do have to throw it just to keep up with Atlanta on offense, and it becomes a frenetic game. And if the Niners can't pass protect, they'll just be screwed. But, to your point about this Falcons defense, they are aggressive. Last year, they could not get after the quarterback. They gave up the highest completion percentage in the NFL, I believe. They did give up the most touchdowns in the NFL. They were dead last in sacks, dead last in sack percentage. They couldn't get after the QB. And so in the first round this year, they drafted Jalen Walker, a player who you and I liked in the pre-draft. They drafted James Pierce. They signed Leonard Floyd. They have Rook Ororo at defensive tackle. And I was looking at their sack production. It's so much better than it was last year, where they're in the upper half of the league, whereas last year they were dead last. But their sack production is coming from everywhere. I mean, they have defensive ends who are sacking the quarterback, defensive tackles who are getting after the quarterback, linebackers, corners, safeties. They really mix it up a lot. And so that's something for Niner fans to look out for in this Sunday night game. It's not going to be easy. When the schedule first came out, I think everybody looked at this Atlanta team as a team that the Niners would definitely handle at home. But without Fred Warner, without Nick Bosa, and just how much this Falcons team has improved year over year, this is going to be a really difficult game.
Yeah, no question. No question about it. And while Niner fans love their draft, the Falcons had a hell of a draft themselves. Billy Bowman, Xavier Watts, maybe the two best safeties. They got them both. Jalen Walker, Pierce out of Tennessee. Those are two of the more electric athletes on the front line. They got them both.
Yep.
So, good, really good offseason. They got I think they're building a bully if Penix can play. All right, let's talk a little bit about that for a second. What do you think of Penix? He had a great game last week hooking up with Drake London.
Yeah.
Some people think that ultimately, if this Atlanta team is going to get anywhere this year, that they may have to go back to Kirk Cousins. Cousins doesn't move all that well, but he is a little bit more consistent than Penix. Penix throws kind of a flat ball. I was talking to David Archer, their color analyst, and I was mentioning to him how the ball that he throws to his right, which is not his open side, his closed side, he has a hard time with the accuracy on that. I don't know. I mean, there's some inconsistency there. This is a Atlanta team that got shut out by Carolina 30-0. What do you see with Penix?
So I liked what he did when he was at Washington under Kalen DeBoer and Ryan Grubb. Really came on that final year that he was there with the Huskies when they ended up making it to the national championship game. And I was at that natty in person against Michigan, and he didn't play all that well. But during the media day in the lead up to that natty, just walking around, that Michigan team was loaded with a bunch of NFL guys. And I think Jim Harbaugh's team tied or set a record for the most players drafted in a single draft from a single program. Now, Washington did have some guys too who made it to the NFL and have been good NFL players. But the one thing that stood out to me about Penix when he was there, you're right, when he has to throw to his non-open side, he does struggle there. But when he throws to the left side, as he's a left-handed thrower, man, he throws with a really good touch and anticipation, especially on some of those back shoulder balls. And so if you can kind of defend that and take that away, he's not that mobile. But when the field is opened up and when he starts to see it, that's when he can really play point guard, distribute it, and that's when he can really sling it. And he definitely has this release where it is quick and snappy, and the ball comes out with really good velo. At times, though, you do make a good observation. I think that the throw can be a little bit flat, but I like him as a player. I always love when players can throw with really good anticipation and throw guys open and give guys an opportunity to make plays on the ball with 50-50s. We've seen that with Mac Jones. Obviously, that is what makes Brock Purdy elite, in my opinion, is his ability to just layer throws out there. And Penix can do a little bit of that. I didn't love the offensive situation for him last year. I thought he did some nice things. This year, obviously, that Panthers loss was so weird when they lost 30-0. But then they moved Zach Robinson, their OC and play caller, from the booth down to the sideline. He's a Sean McVay disciple. And I think that's helped out this offense a little bit. Now, sometimes I look at those types of things as like the player only meeting. And when you have to do that, you're kind of desperate. But in this case, I think it's worked. And Drake London is a stud. Bijan Robinson on the ground and through the air is a baller. Kyle Pitts is an unbelievable athlete when he's engaged. Darnell Mooney, when he's healthy, really good player. Not sure if he's going to be able to play in this game. Ray McCloud, former Niner, was good last year. He was a healthy scratch against Buffalo. So we'll see what happens on that front. But this is a dangerous team, and they're coming off probably their biggest regular season win in quite some time since Matt Ryan was there, because they've been bad over the last couple of years. But they put the beat down on the Buffalo Bills on Monday Night Football.
Oh, I know. They blitzed the heck out of Josh Allen, and they made him look really, really bad on his down.
Yeah,
on his down too. Third down, they owned him on third down.
Yeah,
This could be a real challenge. And Kubiak said it today when I said, "Hey man, they're going to play man. They're gonna send pressure. It's gonna be tough." He's like, "Yeah, no question." I mean, this is going to be a massive challenge for the 49ers offensive line and Mac Jones. They are getting George Kittle back. Kittle spoke today, he practiced today. They officially have designated Kittle to return from IR, and Kittle says he fully plans on playing Sunday night at Levi's against the Falcons. Shanahan ultimately has the final call. Kittle also revealed that he has a fully torn hamstring. What does that tell? What when you hear that? How do you feel about the rest of his year?
Yeah, when I heard that term and saw that term and I was reading it, I was like, my goodness, I guess there are different grades of a torn hamstring. This one was a grade 3. And so that's why he wasn't out for an extended period of time. But my goodness, that's a really serious injury for him. And after he went out against Seattle, I knew it was bad because he was like limping pretty badly on the sideline and he could barely walk around. And I'm like, oh boy, hamstring, soft tissue. You hate to see that, going to be out for a few weeks. But for him to come back this soon, it's a credit to him. It's a credit to how he takes care of himself. Obviously, he's a freak athlete. And this is a big boost for this Niners offense. This offensive line is horrible, especially along the interior, but I do think that the presence of Kittle as a blocker and as a pass catcher is going to help out this run game a little bit. It's going to help to lighten boxes, I think, a little bit too, which is going to help the pass game and the run game. And just, it's not going to make the Niners offense as predictable because I think they've been predictable in running situations. And so I just think that his presence out there, leadership, because you're losing Fred Warner and Nick Bosa is going to be huge. His ability as a blocker, as a pass catcher in the red zone, where the Niners have been the 28th ranked red zone offense in the NFL, he's going to help in that area. I'm really looking forward to him coming back, and I hope he doesn't re-aggravate it because he's such a special player, an absolute treat to watch, plays the game the right way, leads the right way, and his impact is going to be profound.
No question about it. Robert Saleh said today Malik Mustafa and Jair Brown will be starting at the safety spots against the Falcons. And, what do you think? I mean, there's also a lot of speculation at the trade deadline about Jason Pinnock. I saw Bill Barnwell believes the Niners may trade Jason Pinnock or Jair Brown. He's suggesting to Buffalo for the deal would be Pinnock and a 2027 seventh, and the Niners would get a 2027 sixth. I mean,
Yeah.
that's just that's just basically getting rid of the money in the contract.
Yeah.
What do you think? Is Pinnock now that Malik Mustafa? I mean, obviously Mustafa's the guy. I think the rest of it's fluid, whether it's Siegel or Brown. But I think Pinnock was a more of a gap filler until those guys were all healthy. I could see a Pinnock move. Could you?
Yeah, and earlier this week, I don't know if Bill Barnwell watches my show, but I had talked about Jason Pinnock as a potential trade candidate for San Francisco for the reasons that we're seeing here. He got benched in favor for Jair Brown. Marquis Siegel did get the start against Tampa Bay, but now it's going to be Malik Mustafa and Jair Brown starting at the two safety spots. And I don't think this means that they have lost confidence in Marquis Siegel or that he's not a good player, but he has been a liability in coverage. What's weird is that outside of the long touchdown he gave up to Tez Johnson when Tez got behind him in that Buccaneers game, he's been in a position to make plays in coverage. It's been closely contested. He's just not finishing those plays. And I like the way that he plays. I like the way that he's wired. He has 4.3 speed. He can come downhill, make big hits against the run. He can kind of identify lanes against the run and attack those. But in coverage, he's just been picked apart. And so I think Saleh wants some more consistency there. There's also been a huge uptick in explosive plays given up for this Niners defense since Nick Bosa's been out. I think it's gone up from 6 explosive plays to about 9 per game. And a lot of that increase has been both through the air and on the ground. And just by putting a more experienced player back there in Jair Brown, I think the Niners are hoping that that gets limited or goes down at least a little bit. When I did turn on the tape and watch that Buccaneers game, I did think Jair Brown played a little bit timid, which is unfortunate because he's a big body at that safety spot. You do have Malik Mustafa, who I think is a stud. Saleh also said today, this by no means means that the competition is settled. So I think right now they're going to go Jair Brown, Malik Mustafa, but I don't think that Jair is going to lock down that role for sure unless he plays really well, and then he will. As far as Jason Pinnock, wouldn't surprise me if they trade him away. That Bill Barnwell idea was to the Buffalo Bills. They've had a lot of defensive questions this year, especially at the safety spot. Pinnock is a player who's long, he's lengthy. I always think he's good toward the line of scrimmage and around the box. And I think we saw that this year because he wasn't great in coverage. And so maybe Buffalo could use him in that type of manner. And if the Niners don't trade him, he can kind of be that big nickel like we saw Jair Brown doing a little bit earlier in the season.
There's been a lot of speculation about defensive ends and defensive linemen. 49ers, obviously, they can't get to the quarterback. They can't really impact the quarterback. And it's like you could have Deion Sanders on both corners. And if you can't get to the quarterback, you're not going to, somebody's going to get open. So a bunch of names were floated. I mean, Graziano and Fowler threw out a bunch of names. Trey Hendrickson, Jalen Phillips, Bradley Chubb, Rashawn Gary, Kingsley Enagbare, Jermaine Johnson, Will McDonald IV, Arden Key, just to name a few. What do you think? I mean, Hendrickson's the big ticket item, but we don't even know if the Bengals are willing to move Trey Hendrickson. They're acquiring veterans trying to compete and hoping that they can salvage their year with Burrow coming back later. So are the Bengals even going to sell Hendrickson? And if he's not out there, because it's easy to just go get Hendrickson. I mean, that would be great, especially if you could get him at a reasonable price. We could talk about what that is. But what do you think of those names? If it wasn't Trey Hendrickson, which name do you like the most?
Yeah, and he's the apple of my eye. Didn't play on Thursday Night Football against the Pittsburgh Steelers because he injured his back on Sunday against the Packers. And I think it's more because of the injury and not because Cincinnati is going to deal him away. But look, if the Bengals continue to reel, they didn't sign him to a contract extension. And so don't you want to get value back for a player who you might otherwise lose in free agency for nothing, especially if you continue to lose and Joe Burrow's not coming back until December? I think it's smart business for Cincinnati to trade him away, and it's their fault because they're the ones who didn't sign him to a contract extension when he wanted to stay with Cincinnati. And so I think that would be the best move. And I think as far as the scheme fit goes, Hendrickson would be awesome. I love what you said about what he would bring this team as far as his habits. This is a guy who plays hard, high character, leader in the locker room, doesn't take a snap off. He's gritty. I mean, he would really fit what the Niners value. And that's guys who love the game of football and are very passionate. If the Niners can't pull off a trade for him, I want to go with a young piece who can be with this team for the foreseeable future. I think Jermaine Johnson of the Jets, Will McDonald of the Jets would make a lot of sense. They've shown that they can thrive under Robert Saleh because they did it when he was the head coach. And those can be building blocks for your team. And something that I've talked about a lot here on my show is even if you trade for a pass rusher and that pass rusher can be around for the long haul and Nick Bosa comes back next year, you can still find a way to have that trade piece, Nick Bosa and Mykel Williams, all on the field at the same time together, because in this scheme, all of those guys can play defensive tackle or defensive end. And I thought that earlier on this year, I loved what I was seeing with that NASCAR package and what Robert Saleh and Chris Kosarek were doing with Nick Bosa playing defensive end, playing defensive tackle, Mykel Williams, Sam Okuwana, Yeturgros Matos playing defensive end or playing defensive tackle. I think that just allows you to get mismatches against the opposing offensive line. And we're seeing the Giants do this a lot right now. And they're getting after the quarterback because they're putting Brian Burns over the guard. They're putting Kayvon Thibodeau or Abdul Carter over the guard. The Niners were doing that and they were getting home. Obviously, now they can't do that as much because Yeturgros Matos is out, Nick Bosa is out, and so Mykel has to play more at defensive end. But if you trade for a defensive end, I hope it's a younger player who can be a part of this young core, this emerging young defense that I think is further along than anybody had anticipated. And keep in mind that if that player is a part of your future plans, even when Nick Bosa comes back, they can all see the field at the same time in talking about Mykel, Nick, and that trade piece.
Yeah, I mean, there's nothing to not like about Hendrickson because he's got great talent. He's in his prime, and his motor revs really high.
Yeah.
He also has played 164 pass rush snaps. He's got 23 pressures, 4 sacks, and a 22.6% win percentage.
Yeah. I think his game ages well too. Like he's on the other side of 30, but it's not like he's always been this quick twitched type of defensive end. Like he wins with power, moves, and technique.
Yeah. My only question would be, can you put together a cap of $75 million or $70 million of Hendrickson and Bosa? I think I like Hendrickson in every way imaginable except for the cap number and maybe the fit at that point. I'll say this: looking at some of the numbers, and I was looking at all these guys today. Jermaine Johnson's really intriguing.
Yeah.
He's coming off the injury, but he's got 72 pass rush snaps, which is quite a bit fewer than the other guys that we're talking
He's
about.
only played 2 games so far.
Right. But he's already got 9 pressures.
Yeah.
And he's got a 13.6% win percentage, and he's good against the run and the pass.
Yeah.
And if somehow you could make a deal with the Jets where you got both Jermaine Johnson and Will McDonald IV, that's what I would try to do. Because I think Will McDonald IV and Jermaine Johnson together could really give you what Bosa gave you as a solo.
Yeah.
I think it might take those two guys to replace Nick.
Here's my thing too. You got rid of a lot of high price guys on defense, right? And so, yeah, it's a lot to pay 2 defensive ends, but currently right now, you're only paying big time money to Nick Bosa, Fred Warner, and Diamador Lenore is a steal at $18+ million. And so outside of that, you have a lot of young players on their rookie deals for the next couple of years. So I do think that you can afford that. This offseason, what if you pull off a trade for Brandon Ayuk? Do you clear up some more money on offense to absorb that big deal? I wouldn't rule that out. And so there's some roster Tetris and financial Tetris that I think the Niners could go about it in a way to be able to take on a big contract for a high-priced defensive end.
Yeah. What do you think the plan is going to be with and what do you make of the receivers before we get out of here? Pearsall can't seem to get on the field. Cowing is like a rumor. It's like he doesn't exist anymore.
Yeah.
Garendo I can think of as a wide receiver because he's not a running back, so he might as well be a wide receiver, but he never plays. Then you get MVS who came up with an injury today. Bourne is obviously, running the show right now and looks great. But JJ expressed frustration last week. He's obviously not healthy. He wants to tell everybody that he's not healthy. I don't know when he mentioned that when I don't know. I mean, I've got a lot of questions about this receiving core. Sky Moore probably gets replaced this week by Jordan Watkins. You can't catch 2 punts inside the 5-yard line. I mean, that's just terrible. That can't happen again. Demarcus Robinson, I would imagine there's going to be an uptick in targets for him. How do you see the wide receiver core? Do you think Ayuk's coming back or no? Do you think JJ is going to get moved or is he going to stay? How do you see this thing? There's a lot of moving parts at wide receiver.
Yeah, the dead cap charge with Ayuk makes him hard to deal now, in addition to the health. I wouldn't be surprised if they traded away Jawan Jennings because Kendrick Bourne and Demarcus Robinson are kind of Jawan Jennings types of players. What's unfortunate is that Pearsall had injury concerns coming into this year. And then he got off to that awesome start where he was legit one of the best wide receivers in football. Then he injures his knee, and now he's going to miss yet another game. And so that's really unfortunate. He's going to miss at least 3 games if he's out for this one. And so you have some question marks there. But I like what Kendrick Bourne has brought this team. I think Demarcus Robinson with more snaps will produce. He had the bad drop last week, but then came back on the next play and caught that long pass downfield. Jordan Watkins might be able to play this week. He gives you some speed, and that's really hurting this Niners offense right now is the lack of vertical presence and speed. Everything is underneath right now. And I know you and I kind of voiced that type of concern going into this year is that they didn't have vertical stretchers a year ago, and it really hurt them. This year, it's kind of hurting their explosive plays because they're about middle of the pack as far as yards per play, and obviously the inability to run it right now is hurting that. But yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if JJ got moved. His trade value, I think, is impacted because he's dealing with a shoulder, rib, and ankle injuries. And so he's injured all across the board. But if another team like the New York Giants, who's trying to support their young quarterback, they're without Malik Neighbors. They have one of the worst wide receiver rooms in football. Dart is tough. Cam Scadaboo is tough. Jawan Jennings can kind of fit that MO of what the Giants are trying to build. That's a player who I think would make sense there. Pittsburgh, I know, is looking for another wide receiver. Jawan Jennings would fit there. And if you do trade him away, you get Ayuk back. You have Ricky Pearsall, Demarcus Robinson, Kendrick Bourne, Jordan Watkins. I think that wide receiver room is good enough for you.
Last one, Nick Martin. I'm excited to see Nick Martin and Tatum Bethune. I mean, it's a bad break for Fred, but it's a great break for Bethune. and Nick Martin's going to get an opportunity to be up. A lot of people have confused the fact that he's been inactive with he's a bust. I've heard people say, "Oh my God, they should." Of course, what did you hear when Scadaboo they took Nick Martin over Scadaboo, and it's like, okay, Scadaboo had a nice game. There's no question about it. But Nick Martin's a hell of a talent, and I think Niner fans are going to love him once they actually see him. What do you think? How much confidence do you have in Tatum Bethune to step in for Warner, and how much of Nick Martin do you think we'll see?
So Tatum Bethune is a really interesting player because obviously he's not the athlete that Fred Warner is. Nobody really is. That's what makes him a freak, a generational player, one of one. That's a Hall of Famer right there. I mean, what a joy it is to watch him play football every single week. But what Fred Warner does have is a high football IQ, the ability to read and diagnose plays, to play with feel. Tatum Bethune does that. And he has this really high cerebral nature about him where he can be in the right place at the right time. He's a good run defender. He can shoot the gap. And so in coverage, yeah, he might be a liability and he doesn't really have the quickness to hold up there. But against the run, because he has such good instincts, I do think that you'll be able to see him read and diagnose and make some good plays there. As far as Nick Martin goes, nobody can say right now definitively he's a bust. I think the Niners didn't have him active because they couldn't quite trust him, because what we saw in the preseason, flash play, bad play, flash play, bad play. But you can build off that flash. He plays so fast, so physical, like a bat out of hell, shot out of a cannon. And I'm telling you right now, he will over pursue. He will fail to throttle down. He will overrun plays because sometimes right now he can't harness his aggression. But some of the wow plays that he has will really get people excited. And he's not big like Dre Greenlaw, but he plays the game with a nasty streak like Dre Greenlaw, kind of like D Winters early in his career. But I obviously think his ceiling is a lot higher than D Winters. But this is a player who can pick up TFLs against the run. If you want to use him as a blitzer, he did that a little bit in the preseason. In coverage, he made some really good plays downfield. And I'm really excited to see him get some more snaps. And there are going to be some lumps. But John Lynch said that going into the year, that with these young players, there are going to be some bumps and bruises along the way. But you're going to have to live with that. One, you don't have any other choice because you're thin at linebacker. Two, let him play, because with more snaps, the game will start to slow down. And I can't wait to see number 45 out there.
Good to see you, man. Always great to talk Niners with you. I think this is going to be a tough one. I won't even make a prediction. I just think the Falcons are going to be a really, really tough game
I agree.
to win. I just they're rolling. They're playing well. Yeah, they're on a short week traveling cross country, but it's a young team. I don't think that's going to bother them. I think I think they really hit in the draft, and I think they're really benefiting from it. It's all about Penix as far as the win. If Penix takes care of the football, the Falcons, I think, probably get the win. But if Penix doesn't take care of the football and the Niners are +2 in turnovers, which could easily happen, I think the 49ers win a close one. So I won't give a prediction, but I will say the key to the game is the 49ers' ability to tackle in the open spaces. They have to be able to tackle Bijan. The tackling last week against Rashad White, Tucker, putrid. Can't be that good. It's got to be a whole lot better. Give me your key to the game.
So one thing to look out for, the Jags in primetime had their biggest regular season win in years over the Kansas City Chiefs 2 weeks ago. Classic letdown game the week after at home. They played poorly against Seattle. Atlanta, biggest regular season win in years in primetime against Buffalo. How does this young team fare the following week? Is this going to be the letdown spot? I think it's going to be really hard. I think the key is to stop Bijan Robinson. This has been a bad Niners rushing defense. They've been leakier there by the week. And I think he's in the running and the front runner right now for Offensive Player of the Year with his ability to run it and catch it. I mean, he's doing now what Christian McCaffrey was doing in 2023. And so if you stop him, I think you've got a great chance to win. If he goes off and they can control the clock, it's going to be really difficult to win this football game.
Good stuff, man. Great to see you. We're going to wrap right here. Thanks to Kyle Haar, the producer, and thanks to all of you who participated tonight. Thanks to Chase. I'm back with you tomorrow for more Niners Nightly. Have a great night. We'll see you tomorrow on the Sports Leader.